Welcome to Thriver TV, the place to break free from narcissistic abuse with quantum tools and understandings. And welcome to the first ever Thriver TV episode in my new back room, which I've been busy renovating for the last few weeks because it was my birthday week this week. And thank you so much for my beautiful family and friends and the Thrivers in the community for all the presents and the messages and the Facebook posts and just all sorts of things. And I feel so incredibly blessed because this was such an important birthday, half a century, 50 years of age. And I just have to say, I am the happiest I've ever been in my entire life. Life just gets better and better every week, every month, every year, because I have the Thriver orientation, which is about releasing trauma and bringing in well-being. And I just hope that I can be such an inspiration for other people that might be in their 30s or their 40s and they think their life is over, or doesn't matter whatever age you are, you can release trauma and become who you really are. So this is a really good segue, my birthday and all this stuff, into this week's Thriver TV episode, because it's completely and utterly relevant. And it's such a great topic because virtually every day people ask stuff like this request, which I'd love to share with you. And it's this: a video idea I've constantly had on my mind is how to get started on the process of healing now instead of putting it off. Personally, I know I feel overwhelmed about the process, and unfortunately this keeps me in limbo at times. I'm away from the narcissism but not moving on. It can feel like an overwhelming, endless process, and we're hesitant to start. I know it's a worthwhile process, but a video going in depth on this would be amazing. I'm sure there are many others who could benefit from this as well. I would really appreciate if you could get this suggestion to Mel. Thank you so much and have a great day. And I was really inspired by this suggestion, and I totally agree that a video on this could help a lot of people. And that's why I am doing it. And thank you so much for your lovely wishes at the end of the video. It's always nice when people are just gorgeous, which so many people in this community are. So thank you for that. And I'm really happy to talk about this because I relate so much. I used to resist healing myself hugely. And many of us are entrenched in doing, which is the surviving and the battling of our wounds rather than the actual healing of them. And when we look at our human condition, where struggle and being neck deep in trauma and battling with it is what we thought we needed to do. We didn't know any other way to stay safe and alive and have any hope of getting through what is happening to us. We thought that's how we could deal with it. And we were trained to be like this. We were trained to ignore our insides and battle on the outside of ourselves. So initially it can seem incredibly counterintuitive to stop doing that and instead to let go and come inside ourselves until we get to know that the quantum truths of so within, so without. And usually we only know that because we start experiencing it and seeing the results, because before then we had only ever experienced doing life from the outside in. And therefore there's this overwhelm about stopping doing and taking our focus off life and instead healing ourselves, coming inside. And this overwhelm can feel like this: if I don't keep all my balls in the air, juggling by doing everything I can to survive this trauma, one of them's going to drop and my life is going to blow up in my face and I'm not going to be able to deal anymore. And we can have the feelings of that if I stop and actually meet my wounds, I won't be able to function in life anymore because my wounds are going to take me out. They're going to render me, incapable. And we can also deeply, deeply believe this stuff that if I come inside and I take my focus off what this person is doing to me, my property, and my children, that those terrible things that this person is doing are going to happen even more. And they'll get the upper hand, and I am totally going to be annihilated. So that is the more surface level of resistance that we can have. And at a deeper level, when we feel into our resistance and we actually come inside and we start meeting our traumas, which means that, you know, we get really seriously orientated about releasing our traumas and doing the reprogramming on our subconscious, because we know that that's very vital if we're going to generate our life on a different trajectory and we're going to get off pain and abuse and into well-being. What happens when we do that, when we come inside? These are the actual resistances that come up for us to our healing. Stuff like, I'm too damaged and there's going to be too much for me to face to heal. Or it's too late for me to heal, or we can believe stuff like, I'm going to be stuck in my healing for too long and there's so much of it that, you know, the effort's probably not even going to be worth it. And even, you know, very painfully, we can have the belief, I don't deserve my own love and healing. It's important to understand that all of these beliefs are just false beliefs. They're actually not true. They're not quantum realities. They're in fact products of our ego, our false self, which loves to keep us embroiled and battling in pain and struggle and disappointing patterns, because then the ego gets to have and maintain its diet, which is fear and pain. It's so important to understand this part of ourselves. Our ego is actually our internal narcissist. It's the part of ourselves that edges God out, as Wayne Dwyer famously and magnificently termed it. And our ego keeps us separated from our true, our organic self that actually flows with life and is being flourished and nourished when we're not living with trauma wedged in our being, when we're letting go of it, when we're replacing it with well-being, our true self, organic source function, we are flowing. But to reach this state, we need to do the work in order to get the trauma out of our being. Otherwise, it's going to stay stuck in there. And what that means is the trauma that's happened with the narcissist that's been triggered is actually a more intense replay of already existing wedge trauma in our being. And the reason it's triggered, for the evolutionary reason, is to get our attention regarding the trauma that actually was our original wounding from childhood and what we took on from our ancestors, which is the human condition of generational trauma. It is the human experience, sadly, because we've all been asleep. We've been taught to be asleep. And if we don't go into our trauma to release it and up-level it, it stays there and it keeps playing out. And then what happens is we show up in really unconscious, wounded ways that generate more evidence of these painful beliefs. And what happens is we choose to participate and we roll around with the people and the things that represent more of the wounds. You know, we go into battle and we fight them and we energize them. And that continues the obsession, which is the pain of those exact traumas. And then we're going to be triggered over and over and over again. We say stuck in the pattern, which is actually saying, hang on, there's a wound in here and this is going to keep being triggered until you actually heal it. So I want to share this example with you because it's a great example and it may really help you understand this better. A few mornings ago, I was out on a drive with a girlfriend on our way to a cafe, and we were in traffic and there was this guy behind us tooting at her. and she was blocked in traffic, like she couldn't do anything. She was heavily triggered and she exploded back at him angrily, and I just kind of looked at her and I didn't say anything, and then she looked at me and then we smiled at each other knowingly because she gets it profoundly. And she said to me, wow, that hit something really big. I really need to look at that. So within the hour, while we were in the cafe, she sat there with Quantum Freedom Healing and done her own shift, and she shifted it, and she found a 4-year-old wound of being trapped and yelled at about something that was not her fault. And the truth was, this wound had been triggered for one reason only, granting her the opportunity to finally find it and release it and live her life free of it. And what happened with her when she up-leveled it, she said to me, oh my God, I've just realized how much that had been playing out my whole life, how I felt cornered, I felt judged, and I've had nowhere to go. And, you know, things haven't been my fault and I've been blamed for stuff. And she was just so grateful to let that go, because she realized how it had been happening so much in her adult life, that exact wound. And it had seemed like horrible people had been bringing it her attention by being, you know, unfair to her. But the truth was, they were aids, they were angels in disguise, showing up in her life experience, triggering that wound to help her let it go. And if she hadn't have chosen to find that wound and let it go, then she would have just had to have gone through more and more experiences of people hitting it and triggering it. And of course, she could have stayed stuck in the victim role of just rolling around angry at these people. So you can see our inner being is only interested in evolution, and it is not going to stop trying to get our attention until it gets it, because it's going to do whatever it takes to get it. And this is the sad thing that's made it all really screwy, is we've been taught to believe that negative emotion is terrible. Whereas when we wake up and we start evolving and we're really interested in mastering ourselves to generate our highest and truest life, we love triggers, because we want nothing more than to accept our triggers as the golden opportunity to go inside, find the wound, let it go, replace it with source, and be free of it. Go up into our next highest level of true self. And my best girlfriend gloriously is on an evolutionary path with me. She's one of those people, and she does it. That's why in the cafe she went straight to it and shifted it, because she's like, I'm not missing this opportunity. And her accelerated growth and joy for life reflects that desire and that commitment, as my own does. That's why I'm living an amazing life. So many people get stuck and don't go inwards. And of course, we can understand that. We were taught to do anything but that. And our ego loves this, because it adores seeking instant gratifications, such as addictions, people pleasing, and all sorts of ways to self-avoid, and all sorts of ways to self-medicate, to try to ease anxiety and inner pain, which is going to be inevitable. We're always going to have anxiety and depression and triggers when we've got wedged trauma that has never been released and we're not going to it. And our ego loves us to never actually heal ourselves by releasing our trauma, because that way it is assured of the supply of pain forever. Just like a narcissist loves to play with your wounds to keep you hooked and handing over attention and energy, because that grants narcissistic supply. It's no different. And our ego additionally offers up all the resistance, all of the excuses to meeting ourselves. It doesn't want us to self-partner, doesn't want us to lovingly devote to ourselves and be super present and actually heal our traumas. Because if we were to do that, our ego couldn't exist. And our ego knows that if we don't dedicate to our inner being and our healing, we're going to stay in our heads. And that's the perfect position for the ego. Because when we're in our heads trying to survive a trauma, we can only ever think within the consciousness range of our already existing traumas. So our thoughts are going to be within the range of unconsciousness. They're going to be about the traumas in ways that compound the traumas, and they're going to be ways that we think that create self-annihilating recriminations, horrible things for ourselves. And then what happens, because we're just re-traumatized even more by our thoughts, we stay connected to the source of the traumas, the problems, trying to force things and people to change outside of ourselves rather than creating change at the only level it can ever happen, which is within our own being. So we stay asleep and we stay re-traumatized. Every week people are struggling with this conundrum of getting going on their healing, and they write in my forums about their resistance to getting started on their healing. People say stuff like, you know I need to get the NARP program, but I haven't done that yet. Why aren't I doing that? I believe in what you're saying, but I just can't seem to get started. And then I have people that are even on the program, or they've got the program, they write in the NARP forum and they'll say stuff like, you know, I've got NARP, Melanie, I've downloaded the modules, but I haven't got started on them yet. I have huge resistance to actually sitting with myself and, you know, doing the modules. Last week I had a blog post on this very topic, and this is what Anna wrote, and I'll share it with you. And you know, God love you, Anna, for being so honest, because we have to get real to heal. That's a huge step. And what she wrote is this: Dear Melanie, you mentioned something I'd like to elaborate on, and that is the question whether we love ourselves enough to heal the wounds. Now, my problem is this: I do believe your modules work. I've experienced that. And I do believe in the law of attraction and quantum mechanics, and in general in your whole philosophy. Even in the past lives, I acknowledge reincarnation. But despite all of that, I find it extremely, horribly difficult to actually sit down and do the modules. And I'd love to hear some comments on why this is the case. Hang on, where am I up to? Right, I lost it. Okay, I've got it. And perhaps some advice how to battle this immense resistance. I actually thought, listening to this show, that perhaps I don't love myself enough to let myself heal with the modules. Yeah, good point. If that's the case, what could I do? I must stress again that it's not the lack of belief that's holding me back, nor the lack of need for the healing. I do really need to upgrade and evolve because my life is diminished on several levels. So is it the lack of love or the feeling of not being worthy of getting healed? Whatever it is, I want to change this, and I'll appreciate the advice very much. Love, Anna. So my response was, hi, Anna. My answer to this is the same for all of our blocks. We need to go inside and find the root of it and up-level it, or we'll always be there. The real truth is, Anna, only you can stand up to you and do that. When we've had enough of the pain, there is actually nothing else to do. By choosing that, you'll get to the bottom of it, release it in module work, and then be free of it. So this really means tolerating however many minutes of standing up to yourself it takes, pushing through that to make that happen, with the upside of a lifetime of potential freedom on the other side, which really is worth crawling across a paddock of broken glass, let alone being with and standing up to uncomfortable, resistant feelings. The truth is, sometimes we need to get to the point of there is no other choice. And hopefully you don't leave it that long. I did, but I just so hope other people don't. And please know, in the NARP forum, there's a team of angels there to help hold your hand. And that's so true. NARP is out there. If you've got any question about modules or healing, anything, go into the forum. There is the most outstanding world-class coaching there for you. That's where you're going to get massive breakthroughs. Okay, so back to this. This I do know I was writing because I used to be so resistant to. Once you start meeting your resistant feelings and doing the work with Quantum Freedom Healing, instead of leaving the trauma in your body and then going into your head and trying to deal with it there, you're going to wonder why on earth you didn't do this earlier. Too much of an awesome life is passing you by without you being in the flow of it. So I hope this helps and puts it into perspective for you. Mel, kiss, hug. And also too, I just did a Shifts Happen episode with a lovely lady from Denmark, which was all about the ego putting up the blocks and the resistances and stopping us heal. And it was how to go directly to the ego, to dissolve that, to front it completely, to be able to have your ego work, your blocks work for you in your healing instead of against you. And I know that's going to help you heaps by going to that and having a look at that. So, you know, it's, you know, Anna, and others, I so relate because I was there. My ego and my trauma had such a hold on me. It was massive. I made every excuse to not do the work. And my excuses went like this, you know, I'm too busy, and I was just always in survival, battling my life, and I just couldn't stop doing that. I was, you know, very addicted to doing. And I thought it was lazy not to be efforting and struggling and working obsessively hard on my outer life in order to try and fix it, but I was just on a hamster wheel chasing my tail continuously, because underneath it, my ego had me fair and square exactly where it wanted me, drowning in my own trauma, generating more trauma, with me not loving me, not being devoted to me, and wondering why on earth life and others were smashing me with all this pain and fear, which of course was reflecting back to me all the pain and fear in my inner being that I was ignoring, that I wasn't going to. That was until my very life depended on me going inside, because everything on the outside was completely obliterated and dismantled. There were no props left anymore, thank goodness, which only left me with the inside to go to. And for that, I am just so grateful. So I hope with all of my heart that, like myself, you don't leave it until it's almost too late, or even until it's too late. And it's my greatest desire that this episode has inspired you to wake up past that hold that your ego has had on you and go to the only place that is the generative center of your entire life, to take the healing hiatus and do whatever it takes to turn your life around. And you know, that means going into the bird hospital to get the healing done on our wings, because if we don't do that, because we can't fly, we need to do that, or we're never going to soar. Otherwise, we're only just going to crawl around with broken wings, and it's not worth it. Because I promise you that when you work in quantum ways on your inner being, which means releasing your trauma, wound, by false belief, it may take months or it may take a year or two. But it is not going to be decades of traditional therapy with very little or no progress, which is what is happening when we're trying to work on our almighty subconscious programs with our mere cognitive brain. It just doesn't work. And you'll find that you will get incredible real results when you're freed into levels of life and love and inspiration and creativity that you'd never been living and you'd never previously imagined possible to live, because before then you were battling in survival all the time. And you're going to be forever grateful when you hit life at this level, on this level of freedom and a true self trajectory. You know, life starts to work and we're completely different in it, and how we feel is completely different in it. And like me, you can be the happiest you've ever been in your whole life, and that's going to continuously, you know, be your reality. So I'd love you to come over and join me on the blog for this rich and deep conversation about this topic. And you can do that at blog.melanietoniaevans.com. And until the next episode, you know how it goes. Keep smiling, keep healing, and keep thriving, because there's nothing else to do. Lots of love. Bye-bye.